Hey guys, welcome to our first video in our new Table Talk series. This first one is with Patrick Brown, who's actually my personal agent for the Phoenix, Arizona, Scottsdale area. Patrick is a wealth of information, incredible human being, and hopefully you guys will get a lot out of this. It's about 50 minutes long, but 50 minutes full of great info. So hope you enjoy. Hey guys, so today we are talking to Patrick Brown, who is my go-to agent for the Phoenix area. Patrick is a top producing agent in his market of Scottsdale, Phoenix, East Valley, and he's also a member of the Compass Sports and Entertainment Division in Los Angeles and is spearheading the launch of the same division in the Scottsdale and surrounding area. So welcome, Patrick.
Hi, Mike. Thanks. I appreciate it. Good to be here.
Good to have you here. So let's start out with discussing your background in real estate and what brought you into real estate, and maybe any specific skill sets you have that brought you to where you are today.
Okay. I have a unique background, and that background led up really to kind of making me the realtor that I am and giving me all that. So my background out of college, a quick story. I
Sure.
went into sales. I did IT staffing and recruiting, Y2K stuff. Didn't like that. Did fine doing it. Y2K needed the programmers, but so I left that and I actually got into acting. And so I
Wow.
was an actor for about 15 years. I started in DC, worked there for a number of years, and then moved out to Los Angeles in 2004. So through the time period of being an actor, I also was a teacher. I'd gone to school for education. So I was a full-time substitute at a school in Granada Hills, Kennedy High School, and really kind of balanced between acting when called in and booking jobs, and then teaching. Those three things kind of worked together over time. And in 2015, I made the decision with my wife and our first son and I to say I needed something a little bit more stable. I needed something with a little bit more growth, that blue sky income. Where I was kind of hitting that age point in acting where you're over the hill at 30, and so it was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, what are you going to do now? I could have continued to obviously book roles, and there was plenty of work, and I joke about that. But for me, it was an opportunity to join a friend of mine who had sold me a condo previously and who had a number one team on the Sunset Strip for John Arrow Group. And so
Right.
I went with him and his partner and dove right into real estate in 2015. And I mean, from the get go, was walking into these gorgeous $1 million architectural homes. I was really learning from the top up,
Right.
and it was a wonderful opportunity. One, being a part of such a great organization like John Arrow Group, starting out. Two, being mentored by a couple great agents and a wonderful office manager, and three, taking my background in sales, education, and performance and realizing that that's really a lot of what we do in
Yep.
our day to day of it. So
Yep.
it kind of just took off for me. It was really wonderful. In 2019, end of the year, I left the team to go brand myself, start my own, kind of practice. And then I launched at the start of 2020 and right into COVID. So it was kind of one of those, wah, wah.
Not a good
And
time.
yeah. So um, my wife and I made a paradigm shift. We, as a lot of people did during the quarantine, and we said, we've got all our family in Arizona, all her family, my father and stepmother were here, and we said, this is an opportunity to get our family closer together, have our kids grow up around them, and I said, I'll figure real estate out when I get over there, and kind of, a little bit of the ego, I'll make it work, kind of thing. I got over here and in a short period of time got licensed. So I'm dual licensed California, Arizona, and I tapped into the Compass referral market. Compass is not in Arizona, and that allowed me, being dual licensed, to start to work with Compass agents around the country, 27,000 plus, for any referrals that they needed here in the market. And it just took off from there. So, in the last year and a half or so, I've done over 40 referrals, 20 million in business, and it's just been wonderful.
Well, this is why you're my go-to. I
Yeah.
mean, you seem to know the market well, and that kind of leads me into why I think this conversation is important. I personally believe that your market is one of the best investment markets that across the country, just because of the infrastructure that you have there, and the opportunities that Scottsdale and Phoenix and all these areas bring to all of us as investors and as even as a second home purchase.
Yep.
Your market is fantastic. So I wanted to get into a little bit about that. And we operate in Los Angeles alone, but actually I shouldn't say Los Angeles alone or solely, because we do a lot of business kind of up and down the coast.
Mm-hmm.
But what are the differences between our market here and your market in the Phoenix area? Because I mean, you do both markets, and there is a substantial difference in a substantial difference in the buyers that are operating in these areas. So if you can give us a little detail based on your experience as to what the real differences are, that would be fantastic.
Certainly, yeah. Obviously, one of the main differences is price points. The point of entry into Arizona. You can get into condos for the high ones to twos. You start to get into single families, threes and fours. In the Los Angeles or the Southern California market, you're not finding a ton of opportunities in the threes or fours.
Right.
We also deal a lot more with tract homes. So many of our communities are tract communities, which from the standpoint of buyers looking at sellers selling and realtors dealing with, there's a lot more lot fewer variables. There's a lot more knowns about it. We know certain builders. We know who builds these models. A buyer can send me a home, and I've seen the model in this place or that place, understand what's going on, know what to look for, know where some faults might have been with that builder in certain areas and otherwise. Whereas we wouldn't have seen a lot of that in California, because
Right.
California homes were just built by individual developers and builders in small communities, but not necessarily tracts. Um, we have fewer older homes. We don't deal a ton with like mid-century or pre-World War II. Most of our expansion happened in the 80s and 90s. So the bulk of our homes we see that we're selling are typically 90s or later.
Right.
We deal a ton with HOAs. In Los Angeles, you might find HOAs more, reserved for the condo buildings, but here we've got entire communities that are HOAs. So that affects buying, selling, investing specifically. That's a very important aspect.
So why is that? Why are there more HOAs governing areas instead of buildings and whatnot? Why is there a heavier hand on things when it comes down to HOAs?
A lot of it goes back to like the Del Webb, who was a big builder here in the 50s and 60s and around the country, and when they were building out communities and such, HOAs were kind of being introduced as an opportunity for people to self-manage their communities and make sure they kept them up and nice. A lot of people were coming from areas where there weren't HOAs, and there was this idyllic dream of coming into this tract community, and you wanted everything to look nice and similar. So HOAs were introduced a long time ago, and it just became kind of part of the culture. So as more developments were built over time, the HOAs were often in lockstep with them. You'll find in Phoenix there are fewer HOAs across the build areas, and that's because Phoenix is a little bit older of an area. The homes were built a little bit more custom and a little less in the tract aspect. And when you go out into the outlying areas, the East Valley, West Valley, even parts of Scottsdale, they were built in tracts, and they were built with the concept of, hey, we want to maintain the integrity of this small community.
Right. Right. Interesting.
Yeah.
Very interesting. And what would be the benefit of these HOAs, governing these communities? Are they cleaner? Are they more attractive for some reason when you have the HOA governing them?
Certainly, and it plays a bit into our resort second home, retirement aspect. As we've talked in the past about how we are a destination for a lot of people for second homes.
Yep.
So when you have an HOA there, you get the lock and leave mentality. So it's nice if you're only here for 5 or 6 months out of the year, and you want to be able to leave your place. If you know somebody's looking after the community, it gives you a little bit more sense of security. Right. So that's another reason why HOAs have maintained. It also helps for owners to know, who's coming in and who's going. How's it being rented? With the advent of Airbnb and VRBO and other, short-term rental aspects,
yep.
HOAs have had to deal with it, but some communities have said, well, we don't want any part of that. Others have said, hey, here's an opportunity for us to maximize your revenue when you're not there. So the HOAs have done a good job of kind of walking the line in a lot of that. Okay. Some HOAs are a lot more strict, like you're getting a notice if you leave your trash can out for more than a day. Others are a little bit more lax and kind of deal with the larger community. So it just varies depending upon where you go. That's why it's really important having somebody who's on the ground who knows those areas and can understand some of the areas where HOAs tend to be a bit more strict when you're looking to invest or buy.
So let's kind of lead into that element of things, in terms of Scottsdale as an investment opportunity for people or for second home opportunities, and also what the ramifications would be for buying something for as a short-term rental because of the HOA issue that we could be potentially dealing with. And are there any workarounds? So let's sort of get into that end of things in terms of like how to deal with all that stuff.
Definitely. One of the primary things we've seen in the Scottsdale Phoenix market it's not just been the last couple of years, it's been leading up to for about the last 20 years. We've seen a significant number of tech companies coming here, large businesses headquartering here. It's led to huge growth in the Scottsdale Tempe corridor, other investments into Phoenix. And now what we're really starting to see is investments into the outlying areas like Chandler, Casa Grande, North Phoenix. You're seeing huge companies. I mean, Intel opened its chip plant in Chandler here a number of years back.
Mm-hmm.
It led to a huge amount of growth in Chandler. Well, now you've got the Taiwanese semiconductor plant opening in North Phoenix, and it's going to lead to huge growth in North Phoenix. So what all of that does, that business coming in, is it just continues to drive the interest for investors coming into the area. As workers are coming into the area, they're looking to buy, and in some cases, if they're just temporary, they're looking to rent. So as we continue to grow business wise, it just continues to bring more people to the area, and we need more units. Frankly, they have not been able to keep up with the need for it. They've been doing infill, building a residential buildings, building apartment buildings, and we're still short thousands of units.
Really? And then in terms of short-term rentals, I mean, areas like Chandler that you're discussing, do they have any regulations when it comes to short-term rentals, or is it always HOA specific, or what's the general regulation in a number of different areas? Like maybe we can go through Chandler and Mesa and Phoenix and Scottsdale. Like what are as an investor, what would some of the issues be in terms of short-term rentals versus long-term rentals?
Certainly. A few years ago, as Airbnbs were starting to explode in this area, each municipality started to look at it differently. And Scottsdale saw the growth opportunity. There were so many people coming to Scottsdale. They were like, "Hey, great! It's more eyes. It's more people coming into our town."
Right.
Obviously, the residents who were living there were not as eager to see people coming and going and partying as such. That replicated itself across the communities and across the valley. So what was happening is you were getting really quickly, municipalities were putting a lot of laws and rules in place that were preventing or limiting what people could do. And so the Arizona legislature took it up a few years ago. And the way the legislation was written is that it basically everything rolls back to the HOA. So whether the municipalities or such have things in place, well, it really comes down to what does your HOA allow? So CC&Rs were regularly being updated and revised and adjusted. So the micro communities were starting to say, well, we here in Chandler, to use your example, in this part of the community, we don't necessarily want a significant number of people coming and going through it. So you have to rent for a minimum of 30 days or 60 days or 90 days. Right. So that's really one of the larger regulations that we see. Well, fast forward to now that we're starting to see some of the municipalities working in conjunction with Airbnb owners and such, like Scottsdale. Scottsdale's put in place because it's become a very bachelorette kind of party central area. Mm-hmm. They've said, okay, you're welcome to have your unit here and available for this, but you need to have somebody who's available to be on site within 1 hour if there's a police call to your unit. So something as simple as that, if you're looking to buy an Airbnb in town here, and whether you want to self-manage or use a management company, you've got to be aware of saying, oh, if I'm self-managing, I have to have somebody who's going to show up if a call comes in at 2 a.m. that my tenants are being loud. So it's little things like that about knowing where and what to do. I personally own an Airbnb downtown with my wife in a building that allows for it. Even though our CC&Rs say it has to be 30 days or more, they charge a penalty if you so you pay the penalty. So every HOA is a little bit different. And when I'm working with investors, what we're doing is we're first looking at non-HOA communities to see, is this a desirable area? What's the price point? Can it be rented?
Yep.
If we are looking into the HOAs, it's what are their rules? What are their CC&R say about it?
Right. Right.
Yep,
That makes sense. So kind of a bit of a deep dive to make sure that even if it says no, there may be some way around it with a penalty that would still allow you to do that in terms of like a more of a short-term rental sort of thing.
precisely.
Okay. Got it. Interesting. So now let's kind of dive into a little bit about what's happening in your market. The investment side we've already talked about. From what I've been reading and from what you and I have even discussed, for a while there was quite a large influx of new listings that were hitting the market, and sales were slowing. So kind of give us a 35,000 foot view of what is currently happening in the market, or maybe even dip into what happened in the past versus what's going on right now.
Got it. Yeah, it's. I'll kind of back us up to last fall, and when Zillow Homes shuttered.
Right.
So Zillow Homes dumped all their inventory onto the market late last year. We saw our inventory rise pretty rapidly, and a lot of investors scooping in, people saying, okay, are there deals to be had? Buyers were still aggressive. We were still in a place where rates were quite good. So towards the end of the year, we saw homes around the 9 to 10,000 inventory standpoint.
Yeah.
That was putting us at about a 2.5 month absorption rate. Then right at the end of the year and at the start of the next, we only saw about 4,000 to 5,000 homes come back after the Christmas holiday. So all of a sudden, a lot of homes were not renewed. A lot of contracts weren't renewed. Some of those Zillow homes were absorbed by larger companies like BlackRock, came in and bought large sections of them.
Yep.
And well, with that inventory shortage, and we were at a month and a half of absorption rate, what we really started to see was a quick rise again in prices, a bit of a panic buy, if you will, from people. It's like, oh man, there's not enough inventory. We were seeing 5, 10, 15 offers, home selling for 8 to 15% over ask. Then you can kind of move into May, and that's when the Fed raised interest rates, and we saw it coming. And when those interest rates shot up and went up over 7, what ended up happening was it became a seismic shift in what was happening with our market almost overnight.
Right.
All of a sudden, buyers who were out there actively looking, more the end user buyer as opposed to the investor, said, wow, well, I don't know with this rate increase of 1.5% or wherever we're at on it, if I can afford it anymore. Investors still kept plugging ahead. But what we saw was at that time, a lot of the sellers who were anticipating launching in the May and June timeframe, which are really into our end of our buying season or launching season,
Yep.
they were coming on off prices of March and April. So we're getting inventory coming on, and then all of a sudden, no buyers. So the inventory kept coming, and they were at prices from March and April. And so we got to almost 19,000 units in just about a 2 months time. And our absorption rate went up to 4.5%. We saw overnight homes that were gone in a weekend were now sitting 2, 3, 4 weeks.
Wow.
If the home was not updated and wasn't ready for market, nobody was buying it. People weren't throwing money, into it, saying, "Oh, well, we'll just fix it up later." Now it's like, okay, we're going to step back and take a look. So we saw a moderation of prices coming off of that. The prices that we set in May and June, based off older comps, we were now having to come down off of those.
Right.
People were saying, "Oh, prices are falling in Arizona," and that really wasn't the case.
Mm-hmm.
All we were seeing was a moderation from the year over year of 20% gains, more to the appropriate 5 to 8% growth.
Yeah,
So,
that's kind of what I used to tell people as well, because really and truly what we saw and what you were seeing is the froth coming off the market instead of actually a decrease in prices. It's just like people coming down to reality.
yep,
You're not going to get 15 or 20% over what it's worth. Now you're going to get what it's worth versus,
exactly.
Versus an actual decrease in value.
100%, and especially in the cases like with houses that weren't ready for market, and people could sell that before easily. Now it's not worth what people are asking for,
right?
And buyers aren't going to see it. And buyers, when they had their pick of the litter, were like, "Well, no, I'm not going to mess with that one."
Yeah,
and we're still seeing that because our inventory here in September is still hovering around the 4.5% absorption rate,
Okay.
still around 19,000. We are seeing some of the iBuyers kind of their inventory just sitting because they bought up so much late last year and this year, slap some paint on a house and throw it on the market at a higher price than their purchase price.
Yep.
And the buyers are starting to say, no, I'm not just going to pay that difference anymore.
Yeah.
And so, we've seen some of the stuff in the news about OpenDoor and
Yep.
them paying the fines, misleading consumers. I was getting calls and mailers left and right from OpenDoor wanting to buy my house here and there and offer
Really?
that it would sell better. And, I knew better being a realtor that wasn't the case. And when I saw them have to settle their case, it made sense to me.
Yeah.
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 And so a good portion of the inventory that's out there, it is OpenDoor homes. They've got 1,600, 1,700s that are active or coming soon out of that 19,000.
So let's get into that,
Yeah.
because that triggered me a little bit. When we first started talking was, I was very interested in the OpenDoor inventory because when I looked at the data, and when I looked at a number of listings out there, looking at title, I mean, 90% of them were OpenDoor. And you could even tell by even on the listing itself, there was such minimal information that they would publish in the public comments. It would say 3-bedroom 2-bath, for sale, seller motivated, and that's it.
Yeah.
There was
This
nothing
house
else
has windows.
Yeah, this house has windows and a door, and the seller's motivated. Let's go.
Yep.
So let's talk about OpenDoor. I mean, OpenDoor was a big buyer, like you just mentioned. They were a big buyer in your area, and literally they bought up all these houses end of 2021, early 2022, and then they just started putting them back on the market a couple months later.
Yep.
What?
Not even, in some cases, a couple weeks later.
That's insane. I mean, it's and I'm still, even today, I'm still trying to figure out what that all means, like, and why they're doing that. Are they selling for more capital to put back into the market, or are they just trying to unload the inventory? Like, what's happening with OpenDoor in your area? What do you think?
So we should note that OpenDoor is headquartered in this area. So OpenDoor is headquartered here in Tempe. So
that's good to know, because I didn't know that either.
Yeah, that's when you drive down the 202, you see the OpenDoor building right there in Tempe. And so this being their backyard, this was a lot of the proving ground for what they were really wanting to do. And so they were very aggressive in going after the inventory. And I'm projecting my thoughts on it. Obviously, the OpenDoor and all the articles you read about, they may say otherwise, but being on the ground and seeing it, my belief is that they saw an opportunity to scoop up a ton of inventory because they had so much capital, inventory that was moderately priced, and sellers who in some cases weren't motivated to do the work to get the house on market. And then now with the lawsuit and the settlement from the FTC, we see that they were promising and not delivering, saying to consumers that you'll sell your house for more money.
Yep.
And in reality, they weren't. But clever marketing got them a number of properties. They worked with crews to come in some cases, put paint in, clean up, and otherwise. They've actually since pulled back on a lot of the updating of homes that they get now. What they were doing is they were buying homes, they were bringing in the crew, they might update a kitchen, they might update a bathroom, put some paint in, new flooring, and then sell it for 70, 80 grand over the ask. Well, now they're putting homes on the market for 20 to 30 grand over the ask, over what they paid for, excuse me.
Right. And so that's at a loss then when you factor in everything else. Okay.
Yep. Downward commission pressure from them. They're paying less to agents out there. Our market's typically a 6% market, 3 and 3.
Yep.
And we see from the iBuyers that they're usually offering 2 or 2 1/4.
Okay.
And so, that's, to us professionals out there who are seeing that, we're like, hey, listen, we're working hard to acquire buyers. We're working hard to do this.
You're working harder than you normally would work because it's a tougher market.
Absolutely. So, it's led to a little bit of obviously butting of heads between the individual realtors that are out there and the corporations, the iBuyers doing this sort of thing, the over aggressive marketing to consumers. So when I'm sitting in a listing appointment and I'm talking with a seller and they're saying, well, what about this? Would you buy the house for this? They need to counter program sellers so that they're not seeing that, listen, you can make so much more money if we can do an investment in your home and get it on market, and you'll make that money that somebody else is going to make for you. So
Right.
it's all just about talking about it. I mentioned some of the numbers, and so just from the
Yep.
standpoint of their active inventory right now, as of today, I looked it up:
Yep.
1,618 homes active or coming soon. They have
Wow. Just in
400.
Phoenix? And what area are we talking
This
here?
is in the Phoenix metro area. This
Okay, the
isn't
metro area.
the
Okay.
MLS for our area doesn't cover Tucson, but if an agent is based here and they list something down there, they can list it through ours. So we'll just
Okay.
call it the Phoenix market,
Okay.
mostly. And they have 462 in contract, and they've closed 885 in the last 3 months. And I think you and I were
Wow.
talking about it a couple months ago. They were up around 1,800 or so.
Yep.
They've closed off some. It seems like they've gotten rid of a little bit of the inventory, but I don't see as many coming. So
Okay.
they're either not as aggressively buying, or they've taken a hit on what they're getting into their inventory.
Right.
I know that they just partnered with Zillow to now try to buy homes direct on Zillow. They're on Redfin.
Wow.
It's a little bit it's a little ridiculous, truthfully, if somebody's going to go look on Zillow and says, "Oh, this person will pay me this for my home." Okay, great. Click a button and you get it.
Yep.
It's an unfortunate model that hopefully doesn't take off too far.
Yeah, and it I mean, to you and I mean, we know working in the industry, it really doesn't make a lot of sense when people are trying to maximize the dollar that they're earning on their home. There's so much more of an audience that they could be putting in front of that could actually generate more money for them. At the end of the
100%.
day, the lower amount of commission you pay doesn't necessarily net the highest result for the seller.
Absolutely.
So
Absolutely.
I mean, it kind of is what it is, as they say.
Yeah.
Uh,
Just a footnote off of that. That's why that, like, programs like Compass Concierge have been so successful, because for agents, when we can go into houses and we can talk to them and say, "Hey, I've got a budget to do this," the seller's like, "Oh, really? That's fantastic. I love that we have that."
yeah,
Compass not yet being here in Arizona, I'm kind of a lone wolf. I'm doing my thing. I have been doing my own concierge service. I am selling
really.
homes for sellers outside of the market, where I'm leveraging and paying for staging, painting, getting the home ready for market, and then backing it out of the sale price at no cost to that seller.
Really?
It's doing the things to say, "I'm on your side. We're working together on this. This is how we're going to get you top dollar. If you sell for more money and my commission is based off of that, great. We're good to go."
Yeah.
Yep.
The concierge program definitely, whether it's through Compass or, in your case, your own style of concierge, it definitely is a huge bonus to people. I mean, we've done projects in the $30,000 to $50,000 range. The painting, the staging, the fix-ups, and they generated 11, 12, 13 offers and hundreds of thousands over asking,
Yep.
at an already legitimate asking price. We're not listing it low and hoping for more. A lot of the stuff that I've done with concierge has been listed at market and still sold 200,000-300,000 over asking. So I mean, it is what it is, and concierge is a fantastic idea.
Yep.
And I think right now we're limited in LA to 15 or 20,000 right now. I think in terms of the max project amount. I don't
Correct.
know.
Yeah, I think Compass is just shifting a little bit of what it's doing on that.
Yeah.
But yeah, so it's still been significantly helpful
Oh yeah.
to
Yeah. It's
countless
huge.
sellers around the country. Yeah.
It's huge. So let's dive in a little bit to the different areas in the Phoenix area
Sure.
that people should look at short-term or long-term rentals or buying second homes. What would you say? I mean, top five, 4 or 5 areas in your market. What would you say are the better ones to look at?
Well, everybody, when they think this market and they're thinking rentals or short term or otherwise, they think Scottsdale. So Scottsdale is obviously, up there on the list. Scottsdale is, you're buying protected asset there. The name value alone will protect it, and you're getting more people coming into that area on a daily basis. And in fact, depending on what articles you read, I heard recently that the Scottsdale Phoenix market has become the #1 Airbnb market for number of inventory here in
Not
town.
surprising. It's a great
Yeah.
market.
I mean, we've got, so later early next year, we've got the Super Bowl and the Waste Management Open, the Phoenix Open, the golf tournament,
Right.
happening the same weekend, and then
Really?
it's right up against Barrett Jackson. It's crazy. So people think short-term rental. Okay, I can max out in 3 weeks' time and make 6 months worth of budget. So a lot
Yeah.
of people are always thinking of Scottsdale. I always like to add a footnote to Scottsdale, because so many people don't understand how our entire map lays out. All of our cities just are kind of run together. As you drive across from one to the other, you cross from Phoenix into Scottsdale and otherwise. Scottsdale is 180 some odd square miles north to south.
Okay.
So it extends all the way north up to, Carefree and Cave Creek, and then all the way down to Tempe. So there's a tremendous number of price points and opportunities, from the high fives up to several million, obviously, to get into the Scottsdale market.
Right.
So it's worth exploring if you're ever looking at it. And I'm taking buyers out left and right, looking in South Scottsdale, an area where there's a huge influx of cash for short-term rentals, because there's no HOAs there. They're 3 and 4 bedroom homes with pools, and they're close to where the action is. And those tend to be priced in the 600-ish range. So
Okay.
still a lot of opportunity there. Another area that is really growing significantly has been downtown Phoenix,
Okay.
which has long been an afterthought. In fact, it was a place you didn't really want to go after sundown. They have put such influx of money into that area. The three major colleges in Arizona, Arizona State, University of Arizona, Northern Arizona University, have all put grad schools in downtown. So now you've got a lot of people who are coming in and staying rental wise because they're grad students or other, and then people who want to come and check out the Roosevelt District or the sports events or otherwise.
Right.
Another area I'm pointing to for rentals and short and long term is that North Phoenix area, out by Surprise, Peoria, North Phoenix, along the 17303 corridor. That's where the Taiwanese semiconductor company is going in.
Oh,
So they're
wow.
putting 8 large plants out there, and there's going to be a significant number of people looking for homes out there, rental, short term, coming in for business trips and otherwise. And you have price points starting in the 300s out there. So there's a lot of opportunity there. Uh,
Is that better, you think, for long-term rentals if people are going to work at these plants, families moving into the area, or do you think it's still a good short-term rental kind of community?
it is better for long term because people are going to stay for a longer time, but you can also tie in, because that side of town is closer to where the football stadium is, and
Okay.
you can get some of the short term from that. There's still some great golf out there.
Got
It's a
it.
different price point for people too. Not everybody can afford to go play the $300-400 rounds at TPC Scottsdale, but they
Hmm.
might go out and play in Northwest Phoenix and play golf at some great courses out
Right.
there.
That
So
makes sense.
you can adjust accordingly. Glendale, right there, is you kind of come from Surprise and Peoria and into Glendale, which is right where the stadium is as well.
Right.
To our south is Casa Grande. Depending on who you talk to, Casa Grande, Casa Grande.
Yeah.
There's a electric car plant being built down there. There's a significant number of companies that are building out down there.
Yeah. You've got Lucid. That's who's out
Yeah,
there.
yep.
Yeah. I have one on order.
Oh, fantastic! Right? I'll go down there and I'll tell them hurry up.
Yeah. You better tell them to hurry up.
They're building a water park down there,
Yep.
because with as many families going in. So that's a good place also to look at buying land. If somebody's in, let's say, a 1031, they want to buy and hold, there's
Yep.
an opportunity there.
Yep.
Not as much short-term opportunity, but certainly long-term. And then one of the last ones, and I love to hit on this one. I live in Mesa, but I think Mesa, and especially downtown Mesa, is an area that's going through a huge growth period. There's a wonderful opportunity as you go along Main Street to the south of seeing homes that had long been run down, but
Yep.
now there's an influx of growth happening into the area. So it's a good place to get in on the ground in Mesa. A friend of mine's the executive director of development. He was telling me about a number of companies, colleges, businesses that are coming into downtown Mesa. So that's an area where I tell people to take a look as well, because short-term rentals there, no HOAs. You can take the rail into Tempe and into downtown Phoenix from Mesa. I forget what the rail's called, but
It's okay.
yeah, it's nice as well. So those are my 5: Scottsdale, downtown Phoenix, kind of the northwest corridor, Surprise, Peoria, Casa Grande, Mesa.
What are the entry level price points for Mesa? Since it's kind of one of those, you get in at the bottom sort of communities. What are the starting price points there?
Around 400,000 for single family.
Okay.
I'm seeing some flippers and such. I work with an investor. He picked up one for 369 last year. He's selling it for 615 now, completely
Wow.
done. So there's great opportunity to grow in that. It's an active Airbnb for him right now.
Sure.
Projected gross is about 100K a year. So if you can acquire in that high threes to low fours, there's good potential on that.
Interesting. Okay. That's kind of good to note for me too.
Yeah, for sure.
So let's get into, what your opinions are about a couple things that we're dealing with here in LA as well. Obviously houses are more expensive to get into because of rising interest rates. And there's been a almost like a resurgence of the 40-year interest only loan that I'm seeing a lot of people wanting to get into. Makes me a little bit worried because we're
Yeah.
kind of reverting back to what happened in 2005, six. It led up to 2008, obviously. Um, what's happening down there with that? And are you seeing more people choosing different or alternative mortgages to be able to get into the markets, whether they be investors or just your typical buyer? Like, what are you seeing out there?
Yeah. So um, the 40-year interest only does worry me a little bit as well. Same kind of concept. And you might be seeing more of it in Los Angeles because of the higher price point. People need to offset that as much. We're
Yep.
not seeing it as much. Um, Typically, if we're going to come across it, it might be into the Scottsdale market, might be into PV, Paradise Valley,
Yep.
but not as regularly. A lot of people are coming there typically are cash flush from sales elsewhere and not needing to. Working with my good friend and preferred lender Melissa Monraz, Guild Mortgage, she talks with me a lot about the buyers that are coming in. Usually, it's on the ground level. First time buyers, people who are trying to break into the market, are the ones that are seeking out the programs, the interest onlys, the real low money down type
Right.
program, which again leads to, are we kind of setting ourselves up by putting people into the market? We're in a very tech heavy area, a lot of jobs coming in. Well, what happens if we go into recession, those jobs go away? Those interest only loans right away become problematic for a lot of people. So
Yeah.
we do see it. It's at the lower price points. It tends to be a traditional interest only, with the balloon payments, 5 or 7 year arms. But
Yep.
we're not seeing too much of the 40-year interest only yet.
Okay. Are
Yeah.
you seeing a lot of FHA buyers or VA buyers that are coming in with 3.5% down? Those types of loans? Or are you seeing more people go on a more conventional style thing?
We do see them. I've seen only a couple VA loans on my side of town. When you go more over to the west side of town, where we do have a base out there, you will see a bit more of the VA come into play out there.
Okay.
Not as many, typically. More so on the FHA side is what we'll see.
Right.
Um, but again, we're not dealing with a ton of them from time to time.
Right.
Price wise, people can tend to come in with enough down to get into a 300,000 or 400,000,
Right.
and avoid having to do the FHA. We were struggling to get FHA loans, or purchase contracts taken by sellers when we were dealing with multiple offers and such. Now we're starting to get where a seller might consider it,
Yeah.
coming in and
Yeah.
otherwise,
It's a little bit more challenging to get into an FHA just because of the criteria.
for sure.
And also, I mean, from your perspective and mine, it's always better to come in with more than less,
Yeah.
just to buffer yourself,
Yep.
right? Just to buffer
Totally.
yourself from any market fluctuations. So what do you think is the best way to get into the Phoenix market right now? And is there anything people should be thinking about when it comes to, investing in the market? Just certain like methodologies that you might have to make it more lucrative for them if they are an investor or a second home purchaser.
Yep.
What would you say, are some tools and methods that you may have?
Um, the number one tool you've got to use is you've got to use a realtor. You've got to have somebody on the ground who's boots on the ground, who understands a little bit more of the idiosyncrasies within our market.
Yep.
Because for an investor coming in, they're going to want to know, where are rents going, what are
Yep.
rents doing, and our rents are fantastic right now. We're up 20-25% year over year, and in some cases and in some areas we're seeing as high as 40% year over year
Wow.
rent increases. It's great for investors. It's becoming problematic in terms of, for our homeless population. We're
Yep.
walking that line.
I've heard about that in Phoenix. There's been a lot of media about that.
Yeah, and it's a challenge when you're dealing with 110-degree temperatures all the time, and the homeless are really very focused on downtown Phoenix, and there's a huge selection around the state building and such where they are, and it's heavily reported that that's where it is. It's not a
Yeah.
widespread thing like you might see in California or otherwise,
Yep.
but it is happening as people are getting priced out. Investors are buying a place, they raise the rent, somebody can't afford. It's become challenging.
Yeah.
Um,
Huge problem. A lot of people don't realize that higher rents, I mean, other than for the investor itself, higher rents does cause a huge problem in terms of shelter and increases the homeless population, which we see here in LA and especially here in Santa Monica. and Venice, different areas like that. I mean, it's huge, and we're seeing the same increases that you're seeing in terms of rents.
Yep.
Yeah, there's a place that I was looking at for a client about 2 years ago in Santa Monica on, I think it was on Cloverfield.
Hmm.
At the time, it was a 3 bedroom, 2 bath, 1,800 square feet with a guest house, cute little house, in an okay area. They wanted 7,500, and they got 7,500 for it in a heartbeat. At that point, this is literally a year and a half, 2 years ago, and I just saw 2 days ago they released it for 9,200. Same
Gosh,
house, no improvements, nothing. So you're
incredible.
seeing this huge escalation of rents here too. And a lot of people, like I said, they don't realize that it does push people out of that market. So if they can't buy and they can't rent, where are they going to go? You
Yeah.
know?
Yeah.
So unfortunately, a lot of people end up on the street here in Santa Monica and LA and apparently in Phoenix.
Yeah,
You know?
it's an unfortunate thing. It's a product of development growth. It's a
Yep.
product, and that's why it's extremely important to be focused also on how can we give back in the communities? How can we grow? How can we give jobs? How can we support people who might be living paycheck to paycheck, renting an apartment for $600 to $800?
Yep.
Give them opportunity to one have programs that access to jobs that have salaries that will extend and grow with the market.
Yep.
And without going on the whole political spectrum of things, and just seeing that where wages have stayed flat for so long, but housing prices have gone up so
Yep.
significantly over
Yep.
10 to 20 years.
I
There,
just did a video on that not too long ago. How a
yeah,
lot of people don't understand that the increase of prices has far exceeded the wage increases. So I
100%,
mean,
by
when you're looking at,
thousands of percent.
oh yeah, because you're looking at an average of 2 to 3% per year in wage growth, and you're looking at 8, 9, 10% a year in real estate growth, and the last couple of years more like 15 or 20% year over year.
Yep.
And it just eventually it just kind of gets away from you, you
Yep.
know.
Something's
So
got to give.
yeah, it's an affordability thing, right? So I mean, that is what it is. So go on. I apologize for interrupting. I interrupted you there.
No, no worries. Just in thinking about how, kind of having somebody understanding the market, going back to the question about
Yeah, yeah.
tools and how investors should be looking into the market, having
Yep.
somebody understand, hey, this is an up and coming area, but these are the things you should know about what's going on in that area. Um, I love when people are always sending me links from, Zillow and or Redfin that they love to use or such, and not realizing that they're sending me a property that's off market or for sale by owner, or, it's advertised one way on those, and on the MLS, it's actually not how it really is. So really having accurate data, connecting with somebody so you have a portal into the MLS so you can see what's truly on the market, what's not.
Yep.
I tell people, if you're looking for short-term rentals, one of the things you should be doing is consider subscribing to a service like AirDNA, where you can see, Airbnb prices over the year's time as to what markets get. So you can start to understand, okay, hey, really good prices here, and then compare it against sale prices. That's one area if you're looking from a short-term growth. You can do the same for long-term if you're using various sites. Zillow will show you like what some rents might be in an area, but
Yeah, the
there's
basics.
a gazillion things where you can dig in and really find the rents in
Yep.
an area market rents. Talking to property managers and say, hey, can you give me a rent analysis on this property?
Mhm.
They can tell you what they think it'll rent for. That'll help you better understand. So little tools like that, which usually kind of come from working with somebody and partnering with. And this is what I do when I talk to people, and they're like, okay, can you connect me with this property manager? Can you send me this data on that? And kind of be a full service point of contact for somebody when they're looking to invest into the market.
Yeah, and AirDNA is a very good tool to use. It's a little pricey for a lot of people. I mean, if you're going for just one market, I think it's a few $1,000s a year.
Yep.
And the multi-market plan I think was like $4 or $5,000 a year. But it's a cost of doing business if you're going to get into that into that investment world, in the rental world.
Definitely.
So, but
Definitely.
it's a really good tool. I think was it Mashvisor,
Yep.
or that's
Mash
another
riser.
one.
Yep.
Yeah, that's another one that a lot of people seem to use.
Yep.
Um, so last but not least, where do you think your market's going? Like, what do you predict the next, 4, 5, 6, 10, 12, 18, 24 months is gonna, see for your market in Phoenix?
This is the crystal ball question that we always get as
That's right.
realtors. It's like,
That's
yeah,
why I got to ask it.
exactly, right? Yeah. Um, so one of the things I like to talk about when we're talking about the market predictions, because we're seeing so much on the news talking about the mega drought, and we're talking about water loss, and people are like, well, Phoenix is a desert. What's going to happen to the water? And I think that's something that you want to factor in into your concepts is to when you're looking at the market and understanding that a lot of the water programs and a lot of the utility companies have long been ahead of this and have mitigation plans in place where we don't have water restrictions like what California has. We don't
Right.
water that many lawns, but there's ways that our market will continue to push forward despite what people are seeing on the news about one reservoir that's draining and showing us bodies everywhere like me. But
I guess we shouldn't be
realistically,
laughing about that, but it is a little weird, you
yeah,
know?
it's been 40 years. We'll be all right.
Right. Yeah.
Most of our other reservoirs are fine. They're down, but there's mitigations as to how we're dealing with that.
Right.
But
Right.
how that's affecting our market, and how people are looking at our market, and how things are moving forward. In the immediate, and I'm talking like by next month, at the end of this month, Fed is talking about raising rates again. Okay,
Yep.
so are we going to see a little bit more of that same shift we saw in May, where maybe there's going to be a little bit of pause from buyers? We might see a little more inventory tick up. We might see prices moderate a little bit more.
Yeah.
That's what I'm anticipating is happening over the next month or two. As we'll head into the winter, the winter actually becomes an aggressive time for us here because our snowbird population comes into town. People are looking to buy. There's a number. We see our population go up, so there's a lot more boots on the ground here, and people are much more interested in what they're seeing.
A lot of Canadians.
A lot of
A
Canadians.
lot of Canadians.
Yeah.
Yep.
And especially as more COVID restrictions get relaxed and travel's allowed for more Canadians, because the last couple of years have been rough on the Canadians to be able to travel to their homes in Arizona. We
Yep.
saw a number of those homes sold. There's going to be some who they took their proceeds from their sale and they're now looking to buy back in.
Yep.
So I think we'll start to see a little bit more of an uptick off of these moderated prices as we go into the winter and into the excitement that's going to surround us coming in January, February with the Super Bowl and other events here in town. So I think we'll see a pretty aggressive winter season for us. And then heading into the spring and into beyond, who knows what happens with rates? Who knows what happens with the recession if we really truly find ourselves in one? But
Right.
I think as a market for Scottsdale, Phoenix as a whole, we're going to see continued growth. We're going to see it at a moderate level, that the typical 5 to 8%, not the 20, 22, 24% year over year that we were seeing for the last couple of years, which is fine. We want a more balanced market. Everybody who's dealing with it wants a little more predictability. We want a
Yep.
little bit more understanding. Buyers want to be able to take their time and really research it. And we as realtors representing both sides, we want that time as well. We want to
Yep.
be able to do that. So I think the next 6 months to year projects out that you'll have a more stable market. You'll have your time to be able to do it. Transactions should be still moving along at a good clip. You'll still have rents rising. We still have an influx of people coming.
Yep.
You quote anywhere from 80 to 200 people a day, as they say, that are coming here. Well, that's just, we don't have enough units built in the valley. So
Right.
investment wise, we're still going to be a great place to pick up investments and watch rents continue to move forward for an investor. Short-term rentals, as long as we don't have another reboot of COVID or such, we get bachelorette parties every day. When
Right.
I flew back from Charleston a couple weeks ago, and I stopped through DC, and there was a group getting on, and the girl had the sash on for bachelorette party, and they were flying to Phoenix. They
Yep.
were coming out from DC to Phoenix, whereas previously they might have gone to Vegas. So the Scottsdale market has really attracted a significant amount of that, and that makes for wonderful short-term rental, and that will continue for the next year or two. I don't see that going away.
So
Um,
you're really thinking that you're going to see a more stable market, or as they say, a more balanced market,
yes.
which is a healthy thing, and that's what a lot of people don't understand. Like, we don't want escalation of prices to be in the 10, 15, 20% range. That 4 or 5% is fine.
Yep.
And it allows more people to get into the market. So not everyone's priced out.
Exactly.
So I'm hoping for what you're hoping for. I mean, it's really, we're looking for the balance, and just my opinion, I think a little bit of a decrease wouldn't be unhealthy
Yep.
for the markets too, just to kind of bring us back down to earth a little bit and then kind of start the cycle all over again.
Exactly.
But I mean, every market's different. I mean, your market, I'm only assuming that your year over year out there has been what, 15, 20% in the last couple of years?
Higher. We've
Really?
approached 22, 24%. Yeah.
Yeah,
It's been pretty significant. And that's, even if companies are coming and jobs are here and there's influx of cash, it's not a sustainable model.
that's right. It's just not sustainable. And that's why people are trying to find these alternative mortgages to help compensate for that. And that's kind of not the best way of doing that either.
Yep.
So, but that's very good to know. I mean, at least we're seeing signs of stability in your market, which is very, very, very good in my opinion.
Exactly. Yeah, that's all we could ask for. Stability is a good thing for us. We saw such a because prices, and we saw this in LA, we see it around the country. Prices became so high, it became such a glamorous job. The Selling Sunsets and the
Oh
Million
yeah.
Listings and all those shows. I'm guilty. I was on Selling Sunset for an episode too. But because it became
How
such a
dare
glamorous
you?
job, yeah, right. We saw so many people as realtors trying to get
Yeah.
into the market. I
Yeah.
think that's another prediction that we're going to see is that we're going to see a pullback of the number of people who are selling homes, and that's a good thing. You
Yeah.
know, the nationwide statistic is that 90% of the business is done by 10% of the realtors. In Arizona, it's actually 95% of the business is done by 5%. We have 65,000 licensed realtors in Arizona. So if you do the math, you have roughly 8,000 realtors who are doing about 95% of the business here. I think that's a healthy distribution of it. I think, we don't need so many people trying to sell the homes that don't necessarily have the years of experience and the
Yeah.
depth of experience and the transactional experience. It's a dangerous thing for buyers and sellers. So,
Yeah.
market predictions. Otherwise, I think we're going to see a lot of realtors exiting the market, and really a flattening of the number of people that are doing this.
That could be a very good thing for a lot of reasons, because I'm sure you have the same experience I do with, probably 60, 70% of the transactions that I deal with. I mean, the person on the other side is not super knowledgeable and is not super, they're not protecting the interests of their clients the way they should be. But I feel that's always a benefit for me because it gives us leverage when you actually know what you're doing. So,
100%.
I mean, you're in the same boat, and I've dealt with you personally, so I know that you're that kind of guy too, who really knows his stuff.
Appreciate it. Yeah.
Yeah. So do you have anything else to add to this? Things you want people to know, or or even where they could reach you, or I mean, any of this stuff.
Sure. I mean, obviously, reaching me the easiest way directly is you can either call me 310-614-0240. Now I'll probably get phone calls from everywhere around the world, but
Well, that's great.
yeah.
Maybe from Canada.
Yeah, exactly. I'm actually rebranding right now. I'm in the process. It hasn't been officially launched, but I can kind of leak it out here a little bit.
Okay.
So I'm launching the Westbound Group, and Westbound Group is going to be a web presence that is attracted to people around the country and world looking into the Southwest. We're talking Arizona, California, Nevada, Utah, Colorado, New Mexico.
Great
Um,
states, all of them.
Oh, and each very unique with what
Yep.
they offer, each different price points. And my goal is utilizing my contacts, like with yourself in Santa Monica and with people I know in San Diego and Colorado and others, to leverage that communication network for the buyer who says, "Hey, I'm looking to buy into Colorado, but I found you because I like what you do, et cetera, et cetera." So I've got vetted agents who are in these other markets who are, if I meet somebody and they're looking for Santa Monica, I can say, "Hey, Mike Winstone in Santa Monica, or up and down the coast, Malibu, et cetera. That's who I got to send you to because he works like I do." So the
Yep.
Westbound Group is going to be kind of a meeting house, if you will, for agents like ourselves and for buyers who are looking into the area. So
Right.
westboundgroup.com is going to be launched here soon for that. And then
Wow.
the easiest way to get in touch with me, Patrick Brown at compass.com or pbsellshomes at gmail.com.
It's
I
too
use
many
that,
email addresses, Patrick.
right? I got so much going on, man. It's
I'm
juggling
kidding.
it
I'm
all,
kidding.
but it's, just trying to provide as many resources to people who are looking into it and at this market as possible.
Yeah.
My dad's been in Arizona since 1982. I was a kid coming out here in the summertime. My folks got divorced. I would come fly out from Maryland, and I would sit in this Arizona sun, 110, 120-degree days. I love it. I love this place in summertime. I love it around year round. We go through a few hot months to get some of the best weather in the year. I love seeing that Arizona, Phoenix, Scottsdale market is having its moment finally getting the respect as the number 4 market for population in the country.
Really?
Finally getting its just desserts for what we offer here, for the resources that are available to people to invest here, seeing the growth and development in areas that have long been run down. So it's it's Phoenix has risen from the ashes, is to use the name of the city, and
Right.
it's really it's quite wonderful to be a part of it, and be on the inside with the real estate side of it. It's a fantastic opportunity to give back to the community that I grew up in.
Love it. I
Yeah,
love it. Love everything about it.
wonderful.
So it's great to have you on here, Patrick, and we appreciate your knowledge and your insight.
Mike, I really appreciate it, man. It's great talking with you, and it's wonderful having conversations with people like yourself who are so knowledgeable, such a resource, and it's nice to talk shop with
Yeah.
somebody who gets it. So
Yeah, well, I appreciate it too, and I appreciate, especially with guys in other states. I mean, the markets are all so different, and even though I know the LA market and I know different parts of California very well, I mean, most of the time, most people don't know anything about areas like Phoenix and Scottsdale, or like you were talking about Colorado. I mean, I wouldn't know the first thing about selling real estate or dealing with real estate out there. So that's why it's always good to have people like you who are boots on the ground that we can go to for this types of information.
I appreciate it.
All right, Patrick, we'll
All
talk
right,
in a bit.
we'll talk to you soon.
Okay.
Take care.